Thank you, Tally Olson. My name is Maria Falzone. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Sex, Stand-Up, and Silliness. I am your host, Maria Falzone, and we're going to be talking about the first time you had sex. And I didn't know what I would talk about for the first topic. What happened, though, is a couple of days ago I was at the pool, and I was changing, and there was this high school swim team in the locker room, and one of the girls yelled out to her friends, "We had sex ed today," and Sister Agnes, I can't remember, I'm going to say Sister Agnes. Sister Agnes said that your virginity is like a sandwich, and the first time you have sex, it's like somebody takes a bite out of your sandwich, which is the craziest analogy ever. And she didn't specify what kind of a sandwich, but you're a sandwich, and I'm thinking tuna sandwich, right? So you are a sandwich, and when you first time you have sex, it's like someone takes a bite out of your sandwich, and no boy, not man, no boy is ever going to want to marry someone whose sandwich has a bite out of it. And I'm thinking, this woman doesn't know boys, because I know a lot of boys that would go ahead and frickin' eat a sandwich off the floor if it looked appetizing enough. And then I thought, why this stigma about having sex before you get married, you're tainted? And well, first of all, I wanted to tell you my reply to the girl was, well, what is she saying to the boys? What about girls? Do girls want to marry boys with bitten sandwiches? So there's almost this double standard of it's okay if a guy has a bite out of his sandwich because that means he knows what the hell he's doing. And if a girl has a bite out of her sandwich, she's tainted. And there's, again, so much shame around when is the first time and waiting till you get married and, you need to wait till you get married to have sex. And I think that's fucked up. It's what I got, growing up. My mother was like, I had a Sicilian mother. My mother's from the old country, She hardly spoke English. She didn't speak it well. And she's like, what she said to me, she would say, the first time you have sex, if you have sex before you get married, I'm going to know. I'm going to know because God and your dead grandfather are going to see you, and I'm going to kill you so you can go to hell faster. Because if you have sex before you get married, first of all, I'm going to, just by looking at you, I'm going to tell that you had sex. And you are going to be no good for the rest of your life. You're going to suffer in hell. So I had a lot of fear and a lot of shame growing up Catholic. And my parents were very protective of my virginity. There was that whole thing of you're going to be a virgin. You cannot play with that boy because I remember I was 6 years old and a boy asked me to the spring dance, and I could not go to the spring in the first grade. I could not go to the spring dance with the boy because somehow it was going to set me up to lose my virginity, which was just the craziest concept. So of course it made me very curious about sex. And I would ask people about sex, like where do babies come from? And Jesus Christ, I got so much misinformation. Like I saw kittens being born, and I assumed that they were coming, she was shitting the kittens out. And so I said, do babies come from your bum hole? And the mother's like, yeah, the neighbors who had just had a baby, yes, they come from your bum hole. So you poop babies out, And there's just so much misinformation and so much shame, and it absolutely kills me that we don't prepare children for sex. I actually waited till I was 21 going on 22. And at 21 going on 22, I thought, I just better get laid because there's no way in hell that I'm going to die a virgin. Like, I have got to get this over with. Now, I have had people, because if people tell me everything that there is that they need to say about sex, I've had people, say to me, I'm still a virgin, I'm 32 and I'm still a virgin, and now they're ashamed. Like, they're ashamed to tell their partner they're afraid to have sex because they're 32 and they're a virgin. Like, there's something wrong with that. Like, I thought 22 and there's something wrong with that. And there really is nothing wrong with waiting to have sex, and there's nothing wrong with having sex before you get married. I mean, the commitment, I think, that when we talk about sex and we teach children about sex is, how do you have great sex? Because when you come from the place of what it takes to have great sex, I think more people are more likely to wait to have sex. You know, and I've had people who come to my show and say to me, I was a virgin when I saw you last year. I'm still a virgin this year, and I feel good about my choice. And I always say to them, and the first time you have sex, you're not going to lose your virginity, because to me that is the craziest expression. Like, what's a fuss? Because first of all, nobody wants to lose anything. It's like the same thing with people who are trying to lose weight. You don't want to put that connotation, because it's a negative connotation. So, you know, you're not losing your virginity. Popping your cherry, that's another one. Because that was the other thing about popping your cherry. You know, that whole thing of you're going to bleed and there's going to be lots of blood and it's going to be painful. And none of that has to be true. Oh, it can be a little uncomfortable, but if you're properly lubed and you have the right, and you take your time and you're at the right angle and you know your body and you can communicate with your partner, those things are it's going to be less likely to be painful. And if it is painful, you feel good about the choice that you're making. You know, when I was trained by this amazing woman by the name of Susie Landolfi, and Susie Landolfi used to say in her show, Hot, Sexy, and Safer, and I repeat it in my lecture, Sex Rules, you know you're ready to have sex when you can have sex with the lights on and the sheets off. And can you look at your partner and tell them what you want, when you want it, why you want it, and how you want it. And if you can do that, then you're ready to have sex, because you're going to be able to communicate with your partner. And I think parents get so afraid to talk to their kids about sex, because somehow if they know what the hell they're doing, they're going to go out and do it, which is crazy, because you would never give your kid the fucking keys to a car and not make sure that they probably knew how to drive a car and go, well, just figure it out for yourself, because if I tell you, you're going to want to drive more. Like, there's like this thing that, you know, people can't control themselves sexually, you know, and it's just so wrong and so fear-based. It's kind of like you want to do something you don't know about, or you think you're supposed to, because if you think about it, sex sells. What's the, you know, it's like every beer commercial. They have the woman with the bouncy boobs walking down towards the guy who pops the beer open, and now she has to have him. Like, that's foreplay. Her hearing the pop of a beer can is foreplay. And then she's like, oh, shit, I'm wet. I want you. Ooh, baby. It's just whack. Now, you know what? Listen, before I continue, I've got to say a couple of things. The first thing I want to say is that the opening song to my show is actually called Diversity. So the name of the song is Diversity. It's by this awesome group called Family of the Year, and it's off their Loma Vista album. So if you have Spotify, you've got to listen to Family of the Year. Amazing harmonies. They do this song that really sounds like the Beach Boys called Summer Girl, and then they have that song from Boyhood, which was Hero. You know, you don't have to be my hero. I'm a big boy now. I don't know what the fuck the words are to it, but it's a really catchy tune, and they're an awesome band. So it's Family of the Year. If you have Spotify, check them out. Album is Loma Vista, and the song is Diversity, not Group Love. And I love Group Love. I love the harmonies that Group Love does. Family of the Year, they're a little more softer and a little more upbeat. So check them out. That's the opening song to the show. And also, I wanted to say you are listening to Sex, Stand-Up, and Silliness on the Comfortably Zoned Network. And a big shout-out to Ralph Tycho for bringing me on. Thank you, Comfortably Zoned. And I'm going to have to say that a couple of times just so we all know where I'm at. I'm actually in my basement right now looking at my dream board with my Obama 08 sticker. How the fuck did we end up where we ended up? Listen, we just got to get active, and we've got to get loud and proud about our sexuality, about gay rights, transgender rights. We need to just show up and be heard, and really push for comprehensive sexual health education. It's so important. I have a not-for-profit, and I have a campaign right now. It's called Talk to Me so that I can speak up, or Speak to Me so that I can speak up. And I would love for you to go ahead and write about your first sexual experience. The website is IF as in Frank, C as in cat, SHE.org, ifshe.org. It's it stands for International Foundation for Comprehensive Sexual Health and Education. And there's a place there for you to write about what you wish your parents had talked to you about sex. What is it that you wanted to hear from them? Because what's really interesting is that research shows that children want to learn about sex from their parents. Not in schools, but from their parents. And I really wish that parents would take it on. And I have so many parents come up to me and say, I want to talk to my kid. I don't know what to say. Well, say anything. Just say, first of all, tell them the name of their fucking genitals. Because, growing up, I had a Pichadella. And my brother had Mr. Billy. I don't know why he had Mr. Billy. I don't want to know why he had, and it wasn't Saturday Night Live because he was born way before. Oh no, Mr. Bill. Which is so funny because my friend Bill Pazzulli is going to be coming onto the show. So, maybe that's why I could never call him Billy. Anyway, so my brother had Mr. Billy. I had a Pichadella. And I would love to know what your parents called your genitals. I was actually on the plane once with this woman who had just had an interview. I think it was coming back from Indiana State University from lecturing there. And I was sitting in the back of the plane talking to this woman. It's like, what do you do? And I asked her what she did first, and she was an economist and worked out of D.C. She had her Ph.D. from Harvard, and she was just interviewing, could have been at Purdue. I can't remember where it was, for a professorship, for actually a chair position in economics. And she's like, well, what do you do? And I said, oh, I lecture on sex and safer sex at universities. And she's like, I don't know if I can talk to my child about sex. And I said, well, how old's your child? And she said, well, he's just 3. And I said, well, that's the perfect time to start. I said, you could just start by telling them that that he has a penis every time he changes diaper or he goes to the potty, that's his penis. And she's like, yeah, I don't know. She goes, what do I tell him I have? I said, you have a vulva. I go, don't tell me you have a vagina, because it's part of the vulva. It's a vulva, the whole thing, labia. She's blushing, and she goes, honestly, I've told him that I have a hole. I'm like, you told him you have a hole. So he has a penis, and you have a hole. I said, fuck. I said, Jesus Christ. He's going to be, can you imagine? The kid's not going to want to play in a sandbox and dig a hole because he thinks he's making mommy. Or I don't know, maybe he will be digging a hole and going, I'm making mommy's hole. I mean, you have a vulva. It's okay. You're not going to scar your kid. If anything, you're going to empower your child. I mean, I am going to say that probably in every single show. Education, we always say that education equals power, but it also equals protection. The first thing a sexual predator will do when they go to choose a victim, the first thing they find out is, does that child know the name of their genitals? Because if a child doesn't know the name of their genitals, that means their parents have never talked to them about sex, and they're less likely to say something if something's happening to them. So it's important that we speak to our children so that they can speak up and they can come to you. And how can we expect our child to tell us this scary thing if they've never had a conversation? And we speak of things that we think are bad. Like we don't speak of things that we think are bad. Or Well, if they're not talking about it, there must be something wrong with it. There must be something bad about it. There must be something bad about me. So it's so important that we start early. Comprehensive sex education starts early. It starts within the home. It starts within the parent. It starts with the parent. My daughter knew she had a vulva. It was her third word. Because every time I changed her diaper, I'd say, Mommy's going to go ahead and clean your vulva. And one day I went to change her diaper, and she looked at me and she went, vulva. And I went, yes, that's my baby. That's your vulva. I'm so proud. I was like, oh, fucking yes. Because I don't know if you remember this, because given what I do and when I talk about sex, I'm always paying attention to what's going on in the media. And a couple of years ago, there was a pediatrician in, I believe it was Delaware, who molested over 200 children. And it was a little 3-year-old girl who turned him in. It was a little 3-year-old girl. Because she was driving home. They were driving home from the doctor's appointment, and the little girl said, Dr. So-and-so hurt me. And the mom was like, well, you didn't get a shot. I didn't see him hurt you. She said, no, when we went to get the toy, because what he would do is he had the toys around the corner towards the basement. And in that 2 minutes that he would bring the child in the back, he would go ahead and he would molest them. He would go ahead and grab at their genitals. And she said no when I got the toy. And that's when we found out over 200 children. And that was an empowered child. That was a child who was talked to, knew about healthy touch and safe touch. Because I would always say to my child, Mommy's cleaning your vulva Mommy's touching your vulva because I have to clean your vulva. Daddy's going to touch your vulva because no one else touches your vulva. This is your vulva. You can touch your vulva. No one else touches it. And if they do, you bite them. Bite them till they bleed or try to get an eyeball out. Because her third word was DNA. Really important that we talk about it naturally. Just naturally. At the dinner table. I my nephews were little, and I wanted to see them spit food out at the dinner table. I'd go, oh, penis. And whatever was in their mouth. Oh, Auntie, you just said penis. I go, well, there's a couple of penises at this table right now. I don't have a penis. I thought I would just say penis. And they go, Auntie, well, Auntie has a vulva. Auntie, you're so gross. I go, just so you know, women have vulvas, boys have penises. We knew we have penises. I go, that's great. Because your older brother didn't know he had a penis until he was probably 4.5. And I would have never said anything to his mom. And if it was Oprah, I miss Oprah. Oprah had this whole episode where there was a police officer on the show, and he dealt with children that had been sexually assaulted and women and children who have been, and men who had been sexually assaulted. And he said one of the greatest things that you can do is teach your child the name of their genitals and that they're their genitals and nobody else gets to touch them. So I was watching my nephew, and I said to him, I said, when you're at the daycare and if you don't like the way somebody touches you, like when they're changing their diaper, you say stop. He goes, I'll say, stop. Don't touch my bum. And I'm like, your bum? I said, where's your bum? And he pointed to his penis. And I said, okay, and not my child. So if you have a nephew, you have a niece, you do not say anything to that child. You address it to the parent. That's not your child. Don't overstep that boundary. So what I said to my sister-in-law, I said, he doesn't know the name of his penis. Did you? She said, I don't know what to tell him. I said, well, you might want to tell him it's his penis. I said, because that's what it is. And I said, and the only reason I'm bringing it up is I just saw Oprah. Like you just say I saw Oprah. People listened. I saw an episode on Oprah, and there was this police officer, and he said it was really important that you teach children the name of their genitals and that's their body part. No one else can touch it. They can touch it, and that if someone does, just to tell you. As simple as that. Just like if Bobby takes your toy at school or somebody hits you at school, you tell your teacher, you tell mom. And children listen to that. So especially if it causes them pain and discomfort because you're their protector. And so I said, I saw the Oprah episode, and a couple of weeks later I had gone out on the road, and I came back, and she was changing his diaper, and he had a rash, and she was going to put some ointment, and he's like, be gentle with my peenie, Mama. And I'm like, he has a peenie. My nephew has a peenie. I was, and then he wanted to know why his mother didn't have a peenie, because again, children relate, and she said, well, I don't have a peenie. I wasn't born with a peenie. And then he wanted to take her to church so they could ask God to give her a peenie. And I said, you didn't tell him that you had the biggest dick. You were married to the biggest dickhead there was, which is my brother. But I love my brother, so that joke was at the expense of my brother. I love my brother. I actually look like my brother in drag, and he's a good friend, and he's just a sweetheart. And my nephew is now 25, I think. Jesus, I'm old. I think he's 25. Maybe he's younger. I'm going to have to ask him. I'm going to see him on New Year's Eve, so I'm going to have to ask him how old he is. How old are you? How's your peenie? That's what I'm going to ask him in front of his girlfriend. How's your peenie? Oh, Lenny Clarke. Oh, my God, Lenny Clarke, comedian out of Boston. Very funny. When he went to L.A. during the whole and he actually had and it was sad that it didn't, he had a sitcom, and they should have given it a little more time, because I think it really would have taken off. Anyways, he would walk around everywhere. He'd be meeting all these executives, and he's like, hey, Lenny Clarke, how's your dick? Lenny Clarke, how's your dick? And I wish I would have had the uterus to do that. Go, hey, how's your dick? I mean, I just was so not ready for L.A. I just got so tripped out by the craziness of it. I'm going to have Lenny Clarke on the show. I'm going to have to give his brother Mike a call and talk to Lenny, because Lenny's a dad, and just his experience of that. Yes. So I really want to hear from people about your first sexual experience. What was your first sexual experience like? I mean, I was drunk. I got drunk because I was so uncomfortable. It was the only way that I could get through it. I think a lot of the reason that I do my show and what I say to college students, I wish someone had said to me. It had taken me a long time to get to the other side of feeling comfortable about my sexuality, comfortable about my sexual expression, and brave enough to try things that are not considered mainstream, because there's a whole world of vanilla and there's a whole world of kink. And sex is personal. It's personal, but people are very much ashamed of sex. I have friends that are in their, late 50s, and they're still ashamed and uncomfortable about sex. So I don't think that it's a function of age. And that's the other thing I want people to consider when you go to IFCShe or ifcshe.org to talk about your first sexual experience. Listen, you could be 85 years old listening to this. You were told something or not told something, or what you wish you had been told. I mean, you can share from any side, from either the side of, you know what, I'm a parent, this is what I wish I had said to my kid, and this is what I wish someone had said to me. Because I got so many messed up messages. There was the woman on the second floor of my house growing up, and she had a child out of wedlock, and her husband was not the father of the child, and the child didn't know, and I had been told, and I was a young kid, I should have never been told that. And so I told my best friend told her mother told the woman, and the woman sat me down to say, please don't tell my daughter, and I want you to know the story of how I got pregnant. And so she told me this, and this was the story. And I have to tell you, it really frightened me, and it furthered my my belief in that men cannot be trusted and that men aren't honest. So the story, this is the 1960s, so probably 1966, 1967. So it's the 60s. And she is in high school and gets engaged to her high school sweetheart. And she has this big diamond ring. He gets this big diamond ring. They do the engagement announcement. And he's working 2 jobs to help pay for the wedding. And he's pressuring her into having sex. And nice Catholic girl, I want to wait till I get married. And they'd be making out, and he's like, come on, we have to. And she's like, no, I want to wait till we get married. It's a sin. He's like, but we're engaged. And she's like, no, we're going to wait till we get married. He goes, listen, you have me so worked up that if we don't do this, I'm going to have to go to a prostitute. And I'm going to have to go to a black prostitute because they're cheaper. I'm not making that shit up. That's what he says to her. She thinks, oh, my God, I love him. I don't want him to go to a prostitute. We're going to get married. She gives in. They have sex. She says to me, he didn't even fully penetrate me. He ejaculated. I missed my period. I get pregnant. My father kicks me out of the house, beats the living shit out of me. I have to go live at a home for unwed mothers. That's how you ended up with those sweaters, because that's all I did was knit and it was run by nuns, and the nuns taught them how to knit, and she knit these sweaters and ended up giving them to me. She goes, and that's how you got those sweaters, because I made those sweaters when I was pregnant, and I was going to give the baby up for adoption, and once the baby was born, I couldn't do it. And I kept the baby, and I was an unwed mother. And then I met my husband, and he married me. But before I met my husband, here I was with this baby, and I went to the court to go ahead and put his name on the birth certificate. And I was at the courthouse, and I said to the clerk, I'm here to put my daughter's father's name on the birth certificate and claim him as the father. And she gives the clerk the name, and she said, wait a minute, that name sounds familiar. I'm going to go look something up. And she came back, and she said, there have been 3 other women in the last year and a half that have come in and claimed him as the father of their children. So he never had 2 jobs. He was out screwing around. And when he found out that she was pregnant, he denied being the father. She had to have slept with somebody else. It couldn't be his baby. There's no way. He ended up moving to California with a black stripper. So all the things that he said to her, he had been doing. That was the story that was told to me. That was the first time someone actually sat down and talked to me openly about sex. And that was her story. And I walked away even more afraid and non-trusting of men. Because my mother would always say, men are pigs, men are pigs, men are pigs. And men want one thing. And if you give them that thing before you get married, remember, when you die, you're going to go to hell. You want some pasta? Men are pigs. Pigs, pigs, pigs. So, not trusting. You know, and I was so afraid of losing my virginity that I didn't know, like literally, I would meet someone and like them and think, oh my God, they want to have sex. Not do I want to, or do I have to have sex with them? Not do I want to have a cup of coffee? Do I want to hold their hand? Immediately, I was so afraid I would think I would go to, I'm going to have intercourse. They're going to want to fuck me. And I cannot fuck them because I must be a virgin. Because if I lose my virginity and shit, I've lost a lot of things. If I lose my virginity, I'm never, ever, ever going to get it back. And I will regret it for the rest of my life. And I don't regret it. I don't regret it. I don't have deep regret. I don't have deep shame, deep sorrow about it. I went about doing it the way that I did. I got it over with. And the thing I do regret is that I had shitty sex for a long time after that. Like, I did not know how my body worked. I didn't understand how to communicate with the partner about sex. I didn't know where my clitoris was. I mean, it was crazy. So what I will do each week is we'll talk about a different subject, and I want to hear from you. I want to hear, I'm going to figure out, I think I can set it in so people can call up and I can take questions. I have to figure that out. I have to ask Ralph if I can do that. But at Maria Falzone on Twitter, you can go ahead, Maria Falzone Performs. Friend me on Facebook, Maria Falzone Performs. You can email me through my website, mariafalzone.com, or you can always get in touch with me through ifcshe.org, because I really want to have an open dialogue with people and know where you're at. What are you thinking about? What are you suffering about? What are you excited about? What are you proud about? Where are you on your sexual journey as you evolve? And what do you want to talk about? What do you want me to talk about? So those are the things that I want to hear from you. And I'm going to sign off. So I'm going to ask you to go play with yourself. Just go ahead, go play with yourself, and I will talk to you next week. Have a happy, happy New Year. Thanks for tuning in to Sex, Stand-Up, and Silliness on the Comfortably Zoned Network. Have a great New Year's Eve.